The scream froze inside Ethan Vale's throat, not because he had lost the strength to make a sound, because the air had become too cold to carry one. Outside the shattered windows, the world was white. Not peaceful white, dead white. The kind of white that swallowed roads, houses, forests, and bodies without leaving a grave behind. The temperature had fallen to 70 degrees below zero. Every breath cut like broken glass. Every exposed patch of skin burned, blistered, then turned numb. The city had stopped moving hours ago. Cars sat buried beneath mountains of ice. Power lines sagged under frozen corpses. People who had rushed outside during the first emergency sirens now stood trapped in place, their bodies bent beneath coats that had never been designed for the end of the world. Some were still holding their phones. Some were still holding their children. All of them were dead. Inside the luxury shelter beneath Blackridge Tower, however, the cold had not killed Ethan. Not yet. His family had made sure of that. They wanted him alive long enough to suffer. Ethan lay on the concrete floor with his wrists bound behind him. His cheeks were swollen. His ribs had been cracked by repeated kicks. Blood had frozen beneath his nose, sealing one nostril shut. A space heater hummed nearby. Its weak orange glow was aimed away from him. Around it sat his half-brother, Lucas, his stepmother, Vivian, and his former fiancée, Claire. They were wrapped in thermal blankets. They drank hot soup. They laughed. The smell of beef, garlic, and melted fat drifted across the room. Ethan's stomach twisted so violently that the ropes around his wrists scraped against bone. Lucas lifted the bowl to his lips and took a long sip. Then he sighed. Warm. Claire giggled. Vivian dabbed the corner of her mouth with a silk napkin. Only Ethan was left outside the circle of heat. Only Ethan had no food. It had been 3 days since the temperature collapsed. 3 days since the skies darkened. 3 days since the government broadcast vanished beneath a wall of static. Blackridge Tower had been designed for disasters. Its underground shelter contained fuel, heaters, medicine, weapons, and enough stored food to keep a small group alive for years. Ethan had paid for all of it. He had purchased the generators. He had reinforced the doors. He had filled the storage rooms. He had warned everyone that the strange climate reports were not normal. They had mocked him. They had called him paranoid. Then the world froze. And the moment the steel doors closed, they took everything from him. Lucas had struck first. Claire had unlocked Ethan's private armory. Vivian had changed the access codes. The guards Ethan hired had accepted crates of food and turned their weapons on him. His own supplies, his own shelter, his own people. Every piece of his survival plan had become the knife pressed against his throat. Lucas crouched in front of him. A spoonful of steaming soup trembled inches from Ethan's mouth. Hungry? Ethan stared at the spoon. His eyes were calm. Too calm. That made Lucas angry. Lucas wanted pleading. He wanted tears. He wanted Ethan to crawl. Ethan had always been the true heir. The capable son. The one their father trusted. Even after their father died, the company, the money, the properties, and the respect of every executive remained attached to Ethan's name. Lucas received scraps. Pity. A chair at the edge of the table. He had smiled for years while hatred rotted behind his teeth. Now the world had ended. Now law meant nothing. Now bloodline meant nothing. Now Ethan was tied on the floor. Lucas tilted the spoon. The soup spilled across Ethan's lips. For one glorious instant, heat touched his skin. Then Lucas poured it onto the concrete. Eat. Claire covered her mouth, laughing. Vivian did not laugh. She watched Ethan with the satisfied stillness of a woman observing an old debt being collected. Your father always protected you, she said. He thought you were special. Ethan said nothing. He left you everything. Silence. He left Lucas nothing. Ethan slowly raised his eyes. His voice came out rough. He left Lucas exactly what Lucas deserved. The room went still. Lucas's smile vanished. Then his boot slammed into Ethan's stomach. Pain exploded through Ethan's body. He curled around the blow. Lucas kicked him again, and again, and again. Claire flinched at first. Then she smiled when Ethan coughed blood. She had once kissed those lips. She had once whispered that she would follow him anywhere. She had once cried in his arms and promised that his enemies were her enemies. Now she looked at him like garbage frozen to the floor. You never knew how arrogant you were, she said. You treated everyone like they were beneath you. Ethan laughed. A quiet laugh. A broken laugh. Claire's face twisted. What is funny? Ethan looked at the bowl in her hands. You hated beef soup. Her fingers tightened. He remembered everything. The private dinners. The false tears. The way she always claimed red meat made her sick. Now she swallowed it happily because he had none. Claire stood and poured the entire bowl over his head. The heat should have been comforting. Instead, it burned his frozen skin. Drops ran down his face and hardened along his jaw. You are still pretending to be superior, she whispered. Look at you. Ethan looked. Bound, beaten, starving. Surrounded by thieves wearing the blankets he bought. Lucas leaned closer. We are sending you outside. Vivian's gaze remained cold. The heaters are consuming too much fuel. The food must be rationed. Useless people are a burden. Ethan's smile deepened. Useless. That word. He remembered hearing it before. Not here. Not today. Somewhere far away. Somewhere hidden beneath a wall of agony. His skull throbbed. A memory flashed. The same shelter. The same faces. The same frozen world. But older. Worse. Lucas with a scar across his cheek. Claire holding a pistol. Vivian crawling on one leg. Ethan being dragged toward the outer door. He remembered the wind tearing through his clothes. He remembered the cold entering his bones. He remembered pounding against the steel while they watched through reinforced glass. He remembered Lucas raising a bowl of hot soup in farewell. He remembered dying on the steps of his own shelter. Alone, his fingers black, his eyes frozen open. Then darkness. Ethan's breath stopped. The memory was not imagination. It was too sharp, too complete. He remembered the months before his death. He remembered the blizzards that never ended. He remembered the frozen creatures that crawled from subway tunnels. He remembered the raids, the hunger, the cannibal gangs. He remembered learning too late that the Great Freeze was not a temporary disaster. It was the birth of a new world. And he remembered the date. This was the beginning, the first week. He had returned, not hours, not days. An entire lifetime, a second chance. The realization should have shattered him. It should have made him scream. Instead, his racing heart slowed. The pain faded behind a wall of ice. He looked at Lucas, then Claire, then Vivian. Their faces overlapped with the faces from his final moments. The same contempt, the same greed, the same certainty that he had no path left. A laugh rose inside Ethan's chest. He swallowed it. Not yet. Hatred was valuable. He would not waste it on noise. Lucas grabbed the back of his coat and dragged him toward the steel door. Open it. One of the guards approached the control panel. The outer chamber waited beyond the first door. Past that chamber was the frozen lobby. Past the lobby was death. Ethan did not resist. Resistance would change nothing. Begging would entertain them. Rage would warn them. So he let his body remain loose. He let his head hang. He hid the killing intent gathering behind his eyes. Then something whispered inside his mind. A cold mechanical voice. Unemotional. Absolute. Cheat modification system detected. Host has met activation conditions. Extreme betrayal confirmed. Fatal environment confirmed. Survival probability below acceptable threshold. System binding initiated. Ethan's pupils narrowed. No one else reacted. The voice belonged to him alone. A pale panel appeared in the darkness behind his eyes. It had no physical form. No one could touch it. No one could see it. Yet every word carved itself into his thoughts. Primary modification unlocked. Infinite storage. Secondary modification unlocked. Resource duplication. Tertiary modification unlocked. Temperature immunity. Ethan almost stopped breathing. The system continued. Any non-living object placed inside any stored resource may be duplicated after successful analysis. Food will not rot. Water will not freeze. Fuel will not expire. Medicine will not degrade. Heat generated by the host cannot be stolen, suppressed, or extinguished. A warmth unlike anything Ethan had ever felt spread through his chest. It was not the weak warmth of a heater. It was not borrowed. It did not come from fuel, electricity, fire, or mercy. It came from inside him. The cold fled from his skin. The numbness in his fingers vanished. His blood began to move freely. His cracked ribs still hurt. His wounds still burned. But the freezing air had lost its teeth. Lucas kept dragging him. He did not notice. Ethan lowered his hand until his fingertips brushed an emergency supply crate near the wall. The system responded instantly. Object detected. Store? Ethan answered in silence. Yes. The crate vanished. No flash. No sound. One moment it was there. The next, empty concrete remained. The guard at the panel was looking the other way. Lucas was too busy enjoying Ethan's humiliation. Claire was whispering something to Vivian. No one saw. Inside Ethan's mind, the crate appeared in a limitless black space. Canned meat, bottled water, thermal packs, bandages, antibiotics, batteries, a compact stove. Everything perfectly preserved. Analysis complete. Duplication available. Ethan's heartbeat grew heavier. One crate became two. Two became four. Four became dozens. Dozens became hundreds. Rows of food stretched into darkness. Stacks of water rose like transparent walls. Medicine multiplied. Fuel canisters appeared in endless lines. Thermal blankets covered the invisible floor. A kingdom had formed inside his mind in less than a breath. Lucas believed he had taken everything. He had taken one shelter. Ethan now possessed endless survival. The inner steel door opened. Frozen air roared into the room. Claire stepped back from the blast. Vivian tightened her blanket. Lucas forced Ethan into the chamber. "You should have been kinder to your family," Lucas said. Ethan stumbled forward. The door began to close. He turned. For the first time, he smiled openly. It was not a smile of surrender. It was not madness. It was the smile of a butcher who had just discovered the knives were already sharpened. Lucas frowned. "What are you smiling at?" Ethan studied his face. He remembered how Lucas had screamed months later when food ran out. He remembered how Claire had offered Lucas's secrets in exchange for a mouthful of rice. He remembered Vivian trying to trade her own son for shelter. They had not betrayed only Ethan. In his previous life, they eventually betrayed one another. Hunger stripped away their masks. Cold crushed their pride. Fear turned family into meat. Ethan had once died before he could watch it happen. This time, he would prepare a seat. He would build a warm fortress. He would fill it with light, wine, roasted meat, and endless power. Then he would let them see it. He would let them smell the food through the vents. He would let them crawl across the ice. He would listen to their apologies. He would remember every word. And he would open the door only wide enough for them to understand that salvation had been real. It had simply never belonged to them. "You are right," Ethan said softly. "I should have been kinder." Lucas smirked. Claire relaxed. Vivian looked satisfied. They thought he had broken. Ethan's smile became colder. "I should have given you more time to enjoy yourselves." The door sealed shut. Locks slammed into place. The chamber lights turned red. The outer door began to open. A storm howled beyond it. Snow rushed inside like a living beast. Lucas watched through the glass, waiting for Ethan to fall. Ethan stepped into the blizzard. His torn coat snapped behind him. Ice struck his face. The wind screamed at a temperature that killed exposed flesh within moments. Ethan felt nothing. Warmth flowed through every vein. The snow melted against his skin. His breath rose in a calm white cloud. Behind the glass, Lucas's expression changed. Only slightly. Confusion. Ethan raised one hand. Not to beg, not to wave farewell. He pressed his palm against the outer wall of Blackridge Tower. System analysis began. Concrete, steel, copper wiring, insulation, heating components, security mechanisms. Every material entered the system's awareness. Every structure became understandable. Every weakness became visible. Duplication possibilities unfolded like a map. Ethan looked toward the frozen city. Buried beneath the snow were warehouses, supermarkets, pharmacies, military depots, fuel stations, luxury residences, and abandoned laboratories. In his previous life, survivors had killed for crumbs. This time, Ethan would collect the world before anyone understood its true value. Behind him, his family celebrated. Ahead of him, the apocalypse waited. Ethan walked into the storm with blood frozen on his coat and a quiet smile on his lips. He did not swear revenge. Oaths were for men who needed courage. He merely began calculating. How much food would make Lucas kneel? How much warmth would make Claire betray everyone again? How long Vivian could endure before pride cracked? How slowly hope could be offered? How perfectly it could be taken away? The world had frozen. Humanity had entered hell. But Ethan Vale had returned with endless food, endless warmth, and a system that could turn every stolen scrap into infinity. This time, he would not survive beside the monsters. He would sit above them. And when they finally crawled to his door, bleeding across the ice, he would welcome them with the same mercy they had shown him. None. The storm swallowed Ethan within seconds. Behind the reinforced glass, Lucas waited for him to collapse. 1 minute passed, then another. Ethan kept walking. His torn coat snapped beneath the screaming wind. Snow struck his body hard enough to peel skin from an ordinary man. The road beneath him had vanished under a frozen ocean, yet each step remained steady. Lucas pressed closer to the glass. That is impossible. Claire hugged her blanket tighter. Maybe the cold has already damaged his brain. Vivian watched Ethan's fading silhouette with narrowed eyes. Let him wander. The body will freeze eventually. Lucas wanted to believe her. He forced himself to laugh. Then Ethan vanished into the white darkness. The shelter erupted in celebration. A guard brought out another bottle of wine. Claire claimed Ethan's private bedroom. Vivian ordered the best food reserves moved into her personal storage room. Lucas sat in Ethan's chair and placed his boots on Ethan's desk. He had won. The company, the shelter, the woman, the supplies. Everything that had once belonged to his brother now belonged to him. At least, that was what he believed. Several streets away, Ethan stopped beside a frozen delivery truck. The driver had died with both hands locked around the steering wheel. Frost coated his eyelashes. His mouth remained open in a final silent gasp. Ethan placed one palm against the truck. The system responded. Vehicle detected. Cargo detected. Storage available. The truck vanished. So did its cargo. Inside Ethan's limitless space appeared boxes of flour, cooking oil, dried noodles, canned vegetables, powdered milk, sugar, salt, coffee, tea, and bottled juice. The system analyzed each item. Then duplication began. One package became a mountain, one bottle became a lake. One sack became an endless field of grain sealed beyond time. Ethan stood in the storm while an entire warehouse formed inside his mind. He opened a bottle of coffee. Steam rose from the dark liquid. The scent was rich, warm, alive. He drank slowly. The heat spread across his tongue. Snow gathered around his boots and melted before touching his skin. In his previous life, he had once killed a man for half a packet of stale crackers. He had once watched survivors lick frozen grease from the floor of an abandoned restaurant. He had seen mothers hide food from their children. He had seen men chew leather belts until their gums bled. Now he could drown the city in soup. He smiled. Not because hunger had ended, because hunger had become his weapon. Ethan walked toward the industrial district. The wind tore at every building. Windows shattered under the pressure of the cold. Steel signs creaked. Frozen pipes burst behind concrete walls. The city looked empty. It was not. Eyes watched from dark apartments. Desperate survivors hid behind curtains. Some had food. Most had fear. None understood how long the freeze would last. That ignorance made them foolish. A group of men emerged from a pharmacy entrance. They wore layered jackets and improvised masks. One carried a hunting rifle. Another held an axe. Their leader stepped into Ethan's path. Stop. Ethan stopped. The leader stared at his torn clothes, then at his empty hands. His confidence grew. Take off the coat. Ethan looked at him. The man lifted the rifle. You heard me. The others spread out. They expected terror. They expected negotiation. Ethan removed his coat. The leader laughed. Then Ethan tossed it toward him. The coat landed in the snow. Take it. The men exchanged confused looks. The leader lowered the rifle slightly. You have food? Ethan glanced at the pharmacy. Not anymore. Anger flashed across the man's face. He stepped closer. What did you say? Ethan's gaze moved toward the roof. A thick shelf of ice hung above the entrance. In his previous life, this pharmacy had become a death trap. Survivors had fought over painkillers inside. Their gunfire had shattered the weakened support columns. The roof had collapsed. Dozens had died beneath it. Ethan remembered the exact place where the first crack had appeared. He stepped backward. The leader mistook the movement for fear. Search him. 2 men approached. Ethan gave them the entire sidewalk. He did not resist. He did not threaten them. He even smiled. Then the building groaned. Everyone looked up. The ice shelf broke first. It crashed onto the weakened roof. Concrete split. Steel screamed. The entrance folded inward. The men near Ethan tried to run. They were too slow. The roof dropped, like the jaw of a beast. Snow exploded across the street. The rifle vanished beneath broken stone. The axe spun away. The leader's scream ended under several tons of concrete. Ethan remained untouched outside the collapse zone. His coat lay buried with the dead. He did not retrieve it. He had endless clothing now. He had no reason to mourn a rag. Ethan placed one hand against the shattered wall. Medicine entered his storage. Antibiotics, painkillers, antiseptics, surgical supplies, insulin, blood bags, nutrient solutions. Every item duplicated, every item preserved. The men had tried to steal a coat. Ethan took a pharmacy. He continued forward. An abandoned supermarket waited ahead. Its front doors had been forced open. Inside, a crowd was tearing the shelves apart. They shoved carts into one another. They fought over canned beans. A woman screamed when someone ripped a bag of rice from her hands. A child crawled beneath broken glass searching for candy. Security guards had abandoned the building. Fear had become law. Ethan entered without drawing attention. He moved through empty aisles while survivors fought over scraps. His fingers brushed shelves. Packages vanished. Fresh meat from powerless freezers entered storage before it could rot. Fruit disappeared. Vegetables disappeared. Spices, sauces, flour, oil, and bottled water followed. He took blankets, portable stoves, kitchen knives, cleaning supplies, soap, toilet paper, matches, batteries. He left several damaged boxes near the entrance. People saw them and rushed forward. A riot exploded. Two men fought over a dented can of peaches. A woman bit another woman's hand for a packet of chocolate. Ethan walked away while the sound of breaking bones followed him. People always revealed themselves when resources became scarce. He intended to make scarcity permanent for his enemies. By sunset, Ethan had cleared 3 warehouses, 2 supermarkets, 4 pharmacies, a fuel depot, and a private equipment store. The system duplicated everything. Gasoline stretched into infinity. Diesel formed endless reserves. Propane tanks filled rows without end. Generators multiplied. Solar panels multiplied. Insulated tents, thermal clothing, weapons, tools, and construction equipment filled the black space. Yet Ethan did not feel satisfied. This was only the beginning. He needed a fortress, not Blackridge Tower. That shelter was strong enough to survive the first stage of the freeze. It was not strong enough for what would come later. Beneath the northern mountains stood an abandoned military research complex. In his previous life, survivors discovered it months after the disaster. Its walls were buried beneath stone. Its geothermal core remained functional. Its lower laboratories contained materials capable of resisting the creatures that would awaken under the ice. The group that occupied it became one of the strongest powers in the region. They called themselves the Northern Crown. They ruled through food. They sold warmth for obedience. They traded medicine for flesh. Ethan had once begged at their outer gate. This time, the gate would belong to him before they knew it existed. He approached a parking garage where a black armored vehicle remained trapped behind frozen cars. His hand touched the hood. Storage. The vehicle disappeared. The surrounding cars followed. The system analyzed their engines, metal, glass, tires, wiring, and batteries. Duplication became available. Ethan returned the armored vehicle to the road. Its tank was full. Its engine roared despite the cold. The heated seats warmed beneath him, though he did not need them. He drove toward the city outskirts. Back beneath Blackridge Tower, Lucas raised a glass. To our new beginning. Claire leaned against him. To freedom. Vivian smiled from the head of the table. To family. The guards drank with them. No one noticed the fuel gauge dropping faster than expected. No one noticed that several supply crates had vanished. No one noticed that Ethan's private control tablet was missing. Lucas had assumed all systems now obeyed him. He was wrong. Ethan had designed the shelter network personally. He knew every emergency channel, every hidden camera, every backup lock, every blind spot. From inside the armored vehicle, he opened the tablet and watched them feast. Claire wore his mother's necklace. Lucas drank his father's wine. Vivian sat in his chair. One of the guards carried Ethan's pistol. They were comfortable. For now, Ethan touched the screen. He could disable the heating system immediately. He could lock every door. He could drain their fuel. He could turn the shelter into a tomb before morning. His finger hovered above the controls. Then he withdrew it. Too fast. Death would end their suffering. He wanted them to believe the shelter was safe. He wanted them to consume fuel carelessly. He wanted them to waste food. He wanted them to grow arrogant while the world outside collapsed. A poisonous gift tasted sweetest when the victim believed it was treasure. Blackridge Tower had another secret. Its central heating system relied on underground pipes running beneath a weakened foundation. As the freeze deepened, the soil would fracture. The pipes would burst. The generators would overload. Smoke would fill the lower chambers. In his previous life, Ethan had repaired the damage alone. He had crawled through freezing tunnels, while Lucas remained beside the fire. Without Ethan, the shelter would begin dying within weeks. The bunker they had stolen was not salvation. It was a sealed coffin. Ethan switched off the tablet. He would not warn them. He would let them discover the truth slowly. The highway disappeared beneath snow as he drove north. Wrecked vehicles formed frozen barricades. Each time the road closed, Ethan stored the obstruction. Cars vanished from his path. Trucks filled with goods joined his collection. An overturned transport vehicle contained industrial heaters. Another carried livestock feed. A refrigerated truck held meat. A medical convoy carried emergency blood supplies. Everything entered the system. Everything multiplied. Armored vehicle crossed the white wasteland without slowing. Hours later, Ethan reached a frozen service station. Lights glowed inside. Someone had power. He parked at a distance and approached on foot. Through the glass, he saw a young woman kneeling beside an elderly man. The old man struggled to breathe. A small portable heater flickered between them. 3 armed men stood nearby. Their leader held a box of medicine. The woman reached for it. He pulled it away. "Give me the keys to your truck." "The truck has no fuel." "Then give me your coat." "My father will freeze." The leader looked at the old man. "He is dying anyway." The woman's face went pale. The other men laughed. Ethan entered. The bell above the door rang. Every weapon turned toward him. The leader looked him up and down. Ethan carried no visible bag, no heavy coat, no weapon. The leader smiled. "Bad place to get lost." Ethan glanced at the medicine. "Give it to her." The room fell silent. The leader laughed. "You think you are a hero?" Ethan shook his head. Heroes protected everyone. Ethan protected only what had value. The woman knew the northern mountains. Her truck bore the emblem of a geological survey team. She might know the hidden roads leading toward the research complex. That made her useful. The leader raised his gun. Ethan moved. The distance vanished beneath one step. His palm struck the gun aside. His other hand closed around the man's throat. The system's warmth surged through his muscles. Bone cracked. The leader collapsed. The others fired. Ethan stored the bullets before they reached him. The shots produced nothing but empty clicks of displaced air. The men stared at their weapons. Ethan smiled. Then he released the stored bullets behind them. Metal tore through flesh. Both men fell. The woman froze. Ethan picked up the medicine and placed it in her hands. "Give him half." She stared at him. "How did you?" "Half." She obeyed. Ethan crouched beside the old man. The system scanned his condition. Severe infection. Collapsed lung. Internal bleeding. The medicine would delay death. It would not prevent it. Ethan could save him with supplies already stored. But nothing was free. "What is your name?" Ethan asked. "Mara." "You worked in the northern mountains." Her eyes widened. "How do you know?" "The truck." She looked toward the window. Ethan continued. "There is a military complex beneath the Blackstone Ridge." Mara's hand stopped. "That site is classified." "So, it exists." She said nothing. Her silence answered him. Ethan produced a sealed medical case from empty air. Mara stared as he opened it. Inside were tools, antibiotics, blood bags, and surgical equipment. He placed one hand near the old man's chest. Warmth spread through the frozen room. The weak heater suddenly became irrelevant. Mara looked at Ethan as though a god had stepped from the blizzard. "I can keep him alive," Ethan said. "You will guide me to the complex." Her lips trembled. "You can save my father?" "Yes." "What do you want after that?" "Obedience." The answer came without softness, without shame. Mara looked at the dead men, then at her father, then at the impossible warmth surrounding Ethan. She lowered her head. "I agree." Ethan began working. Outside, the frozen world continued to die. Inside Blackridge Tower, Lucas opened another bottle of wine. He ordered the heaters turned higher. Claire demanded a second dinner. Vivian instructed the guards to burn spare fuel so her bedroom would remain warm through the night. They believed abundance surrounded them. They believed Ethan had surrendered everything. They believed they had stolen paradise. Far to the north, Ethan Vale drove toward a hidden fortress with endless food, endless fuel, endless medicine, and the first loyal servant of his new empire beside him. Behind him, the poison shelter continued swallowing its own resources. The thieves laughed. The pipes beneath their feet began to crack. The road into Blackstone Ridge did not exist on any civilian map. Mara guided Ethan through a frozen forest where pine trees stood like black spears beneath the moon. Snow swallowed the old survey markers. Landslides had buried the main route years ago. In another life, reaching the mountain had taken Ethan nearly a month. This time, obstacles simply vanished. Fallen trees disappeared into storage. Boulders disappeared. Abandoned vehicles disappeared. Every useful material was analyzed, copied, and added to the endless darkness under Ethan's control. Mara watched the road clear itself before the armored vehicle. She stopped asking questions. Her father slept in the rear seat beneath a thermal blanket. The bleeding in his chest had stopped. His breathing had stabilized. Medicine flowed through a tube connected to his arm. He should have been dead. Mara knew it. Ethan had not saved him with kindness. He had saved him with terrifying competence. That frightened her more. A compassionate man could be manipulated. A cruel man could be predicted. Ethan was neither. He looked at lives the way an engineer looked at tools. Useful, broken, replaceable. Mara had made herself useful. That was why she still breathed. They reached the base of the mountain before dawn. A wall of ice covered the hidden entrance. Mara pointed toward a section of stone. There should be a blast door behind that. Ethan stepped from the vehicle. The storm screamed around him. He pressed his palm against the ice. The entire wall vanished. A massive steel gate emerged from the frozen darkness. Its surface carried the faded emblem of a military research division that had officially never existed. Mara stared. My team searched this area for weeks. You searched like civilians. What does that mean? You believed the mountain was solid. Ethan touched the gate. The system analyzed it. Layered steel, ceramic armor, hydraulic locks, biometric controls, a dead power network. Ethan stored the entire gate. The entrance opened without resistance. Beyond it waited a tunnel wide enough for military transports. Darkness swallowed the walls. Mara raised a flashlight. Ethan walked forward without one. The system mapped every pipe, cable, chamber, and sealed door around him. The complex stretched deep into the mountain. Barracks, laboratories, fuel storage, armories, medical rooms, cold chambers, hydroponic facilities, water purification systems. A geothermal generator buried near the Earth's heat. The Northern Crown had discovered only part of the base in his previous life. They had never opened its deepest level. Ethan knew what slept there. He had seen the consequences. He led Mara to the medical wing and placed her father on a clean bed. Then he began restoring the room. A generator appeared. Lights flickered on. Medical equipment emerged from storage. Cabinets filled with duplicated medicine. Water flowed through newly repaired pipes. Warm air entered the chamber. Mara stood in the doorway. Her frozen clothes began to steam. She looked down the corridor. One lamp after another came alive. The dead base awakened around Ethan like a beast recognizing its master. This place has been abandoned for decades, she whispered. Not anymore. What are you going to build here? Ethan adjusted the medicine feeding into her father's arm. A world that does not need permission to survive. Mara looked at him. And who is allowed into that world? Whoever earns it. Her father stirred. Mara rushed to his side. His eyes opened. For the first time since the freeze began, he could breathe without drowning in his own blood. Mara covered her mouth. Tears formed. She turned toward Ethan. He had already left. Gratitude did not interest him. Results did. Ethan entered the geothermal chamber. The original machinery had been damaged by neglect. Corrosion covered the valves. Several turbines were useless. The control system had rotted. He placed both hands against the central housing. The machine vanished. A perfect duplicate appeared in its place. Then another. Then another. He connected them through copied pipes and reinforced cables. Power surged through the mountain. The complex shook. Lights ignited across every level. Heating systems roared. Security doors sealed. Water pumps awakened. Screens flickered with old data. The temperature inside the base climbed. Snow melted from the outer tunnel. Ethan stood before the humming geothermal core. In his previous life, entire settlements had burned furniture for warmth. Children had frozen while hugging dead parents. Power had become more valuable than gold. Now energy flowed beneath his feet without limit. He could heat every room. He could grow food underground. He could power machines, weapons, vehicles, and laboratories. He could recreate civilization while the rest of humanity clawed through ice. But a fortress was more than walls. It required servants, guards, engineers, doctors, hunters, builders. People who understood that survival came from obedience. Ethan opened the stolen shelter tablet. Blackridge Tower appeared on the screen. The celebration had ended. Lucas stood beside a damaged heating console. His face was red with rage. A guard tried to explain the falling pressure in the underground pipes. Vivian demanded answers. Claire complained that her bedroom had become cold. Lucas struck the guard. Fix it. We need replacement valves. Then find them. The streets are buried. Lucas grabbed the man by the collar. Ethan built this place. He kept spare parts. The guard looked toward the empty storage shelves. Several crates had vanished before they noticed. No one knew how. Claire folded her arms. Maybe Ethan moved them. Lucas turned on her. He is dead. The words sounded less certain than before. Vivian noticed. Her gaze sharpened. You watched him leave. I watched him walk into the storm. Did you watch him die? Lucas said nothing. Ethan leaned back in the command chair. Warm light filled the control room around him. A plate of roasted lamb rested beside his hand. The meat glistened beneath a layer of herbs. Fresh bread released steam. A glass of dark wine waited near the tablet. He cut a piece of lamb and ate while Lucas shouted at the failing shelter. The contrast pleased him. Not enough. He sent a message through the shelter's private channel. A single line appeared on Lucas's screen. Still warm? Lucas froze. Claire saw the message. Her face drained of color. Vivian stepped closer. The guards exchanged nervous looks. Lucas grabbed the tablet. Who sent that? No answer came. He opened the security network. No external signal appeared. He checked Ethan's identification code. It had been erased. Lucas stared at the words until the damaged heater coughed behind him. Then Ethan shut the connection. Fear needed space to grow. He would not crush Lucas with proof. He would feed him doubt. Mara entered the control room. Her hair was wet from a shower. She wore clean thermal clothing Ethan had given her. She stopped when she saw the meal. Roasted meat, fresh bread, butter, wine, a bowl of fruit. The sight struck her harder than the guns had. Outside, people were dying over canned beans. Inside the mountain, Ethan ate like an emperor. Your father will recover, he said. Mara lowered her head. I owe you his life. You owe me work. What do you need? People. She hesitated. Most of my team evacuated toward Greyhaven when the freeze began. Are they competent? Geologists. Engineers. Medical staff. A few security specialists. Loyal? They are frightened. That was not my question. Mara thought carefully. They will be loyal to whoever keeps them alive. Ethan nodded. An honest answer. Contact them. The communication grid is dead. Ethan touched a control panel. A military satellite terminal appeared beside her. Its screen came alive. Mara stared. Ethan gave her a list of coordinates. Tell them there is heat, food, medicine, and shelter here. They will bring families. Only useful people enter. Mara's expression tightened. What about children? Children can learn. The elderly? Some have knowledge. The injured? Temporary damage can be repaired. And those who have nothing to offer? Ethan looked at her. Everyone has something to offer. The useless are the ones who refuse. Mara understood. His fortress was not a charity. It was a contract. Work for warmth. Loyalty for food. Value for life. She began transmitting. Responses arrived slowly. A doctor trapped in a rural clinic. A mechanic sheltering beneath a train station. 2 engineers hiding inside a mining camp. A former soldier protecting a group of children. A food scientist with access to seed archives. Ethan marked each location. Then he released duplicated vehicles from storage. Armored transports rolled from the mountain. Every engine carried infinite fuel. Every cabin remained warm. Mara watched him assign routes. You are sending them alone? The vehicles do not need drivers. The system linked with each machine. Engines obeyed. Navigation screens awakened. Convoys departed into the storm. By evening, the first survivors arrived. They entered Blackstone Ridge expecting a bunker. They found a kingdom under construction. The main tunnel had been reinforced with layered steel. Automated weapons tracked every movement. Clean water flowed. Heated dormitories waited behind sealed doors. The medical wing shone brighter than any surviving hospital. The kitchen held mountains of food: rice, meat, vegetables, fruit, eggs, milk, coffee, chocolate, spices, fresh bread. Some survivors began crying before they crossed the threshold. One man dropped to his knees when he smelled soup. A woman clutched an orange in both hands as though it were a sacred object. Children stared at bowls filled beyond the rim. Ethan watched from an elevated platform. Eat? No one moved. They feared the food was a test. Ethan understood. Starvation trained people quickly. You will work after you eat. That broke them. They rushed forward. Spoons scraped against bowls. Hands tore bread apart. Soup ran down chins. A child bit into an apple and began sobbing. The sound spread through the hall. Adults turned away to hide tears. Ethan felt nothing. Tears did not build walls. He allowed them one night of weakness. At dawn, the empire began. Engineers repaired the deeper ventilation network. Doctors expanded the medical wing. Mechanics assembled duplicated machinery. Former soldiers trained new guards. Scientists entered the hydroponic level and discovered shelves filled with perfect seeds. Builders reinforced the outer gates. Every worker received heat. Every worker received food. Every worker learned the rules. No theft. No waste. No private violence. No concealed weapons. No disobedience during emergencies. Punishment was immediate. Reward was undeniable. The first thief appeared before the week ended. He hid packets of dried meat beneath his mattress. Ethan gathered everyone in the central hall. The thief fell to his knees. I was afraid. You were fed. I have a daughter. She was fed. I thought the food might run out. Ethan opened the storage doors. Crates stretched down the corridor. More appeared. Then more. Then more. The hall filled until people could no longer see the far wall. Food towered above them. The thief stared upward. His excuse died. Ethan approached. You did not steal because you were hungry. The man trembled. You stole because you wanted others to have less. Ethan stripped him of shelter privileges. He was not thrown outside. That would waste labor. He was sent to the cold maintenance tunnels with reduced heat and plain rations. Everyone understood. Ethan did not punish desperation. He punished greed that threatened order. Loyalty hardened. The people began calling the complex Haven. Ethan never used the name. A haven suggested safety without cost. He called it the Crown, not the Northern Crown from his previous life. Just the Crown. There would be no rival direction, no equal territory, only the center of power and the frozen wasteland beyond it. Mara became his chief coordinator. Her father, Dr. Elias Voss, recovered and took command of medical operations. A former captain named Grant Hale led security. A quiet engineer named Naomi Kessler restored the lower laboratories. Each proved useful. Each received authority. Each understood that authority existed only because Ethan allowed it. The weakest skill in the old world became the foundation of the new one. Storage, duplication, preservation, simple abilities in appearance, godlike beneath scarcity. Ethan stored damaged machines and returned them flawless. He copied rare medicine. He duplicated armor. He created endless ammunition without firing a factory. He reproduced construction materials until entire sections of the mountain transformed. Walls became thicker. Doors became heavier. Tunnels expanded. Living quarters gained private heat. Gardens bloomed beneath artificial sunlight. Fish moved through clean tanks. Fruit trees grew under controlled lamps. Livestock occupied heated underground chambers. The survivors stopped measuring time by storms. They measured it by Ethan's expansions. Another hall opened. Another generator awakened. Another table filled. Another impossible comfort returned. Hot showers. Clean clothes. Music. Books. Sweet desserts. Fresh coffee every morning. The world above had become a grave. Below it, Ethan constructed abundance so complete that it felt obscene. He wanted it obscene. Power was strongest when it could be seen, smelled, tasted, and envied. Blackridge Tower continued to decay. Lucas rationed food for the first time. Claire screamed when told she could not take another hot bath. Vivian hid wine in her room. The guards began stealing fuel. A pipe burst beneath the eastern corridor. The shelter temperature fell. Lucas accused everyone. Everyone blamed Ethan. His name entered every argument. Ethan watched them from a wall of screens. Then he opened a communication channel. The camera in Blackridge Tower flickered. Lucas looked up. The central monitor came alive. Ethan appeared seated at a long table. Behind him, warm lights shone across a vast dining hall. People ate roasted meat. Children drank hot milk. Fresh bread covered the tables. Steam rose from silver pots. Music played softly. Claire stepped toward the screen. Her lips parted. Vivian gripped the back of a chair. Lucas stared at Ethan's clean clothes, calm face, and untouched glass of wine. For several breaths, no one spoke. Then Lucas shouted, "Where are you?" Ethan lifted the wine. He drank slowly. Claire's eyes followed the glass. Vivian looked past him toward the food. Lucas struck the monitor. "You stole supplies from us." Ethan smiled. "No." His voice flowed through the freezing shelter. "I left you everything you deserved." The connection ended. The screen went black. Silence crushed the room. Then the guards began whispering. Claire looked at Lucas differently. Vivian's hand tightened around her hidden room key. The illusion had cracked. They had believed themselves kings inside a shelter. Now they had seen a true empire. And somewhere beneath a warm mountain, Ethan Vale leaned back upon a throne of steel while the first seeds of worship spread through the crown. Outside, the storm deepened. Far below the ice, something ancient opened its eyes. The first scream came from beneath the ice. It rolled through the mountain like thunder trapped underground. Every light inside the crown flickered. Metal groaned. Water shivered inside pipes. Children stopped eating. Workers froze in place. Then the alarms began. Not the clean warning tones Ethan had installed. These were older, buried deeper. A military emergency system that had slept for decades suddenly awakened beneath the lowest laboratory. Red lights flooded every corridor. Naomi Kessler appeared on the central screen. Her face had lost all color. "We have movement below the sealed level." Ethan stood from his chair. "How much?" "The sensors cannot measure it." Another impact struck the mountain. Dust fell from the ceiling. The steel support beam bent. People screamed. Grant Hale raised his rifle. "Evacuate the lower sectors." Ethan looked toward the floor. He remembered this moment. In his previous life, the Northern Crown had opened the sealed level while searching for weapons. They found something else. A creature buried before the research complex had been built. Not preserved. Imprisoned. The scientists had called it a thermal predator. It did not survive cold. It created cold. The endless winter had fed it. Every drop in temperature had strengthened it. By the time the Northern Crown discovered the prison, the beast had grown large enough to tear through reinforced steel. It slaughtered half the settlement before escaping. Then it moved south. Cities disappeared beneath storms that followed wherever it walked. Ethan had once seen it from miles away. A mountain of black bone beneath a crown of frozen vapor. He had watched thousands die without understanding what he was seeing. Now, it was beneath his feet, and it was waking early. Naomi's voice shook. "The lower door is deforming. Seal every passage above it." "We already did." "It will not matter," Ethan said. Grant stared at him. "You know what is down there?" "Yes." "What is it?" "A test." The mountain shook again. This time, the floor split. A crack raced through the control room. Frozen mist poured upward. Every worker near it stumbled back. A wrench fell into the vapor. It froze before touching the ground. Then it shattered. Mara entered with Dr. Voss behind her. "Temperatures are collapsing in the eastern wing." "How low?" Grant asked. Naomi answered through the screen. "Below anything the instruments were designed to record." Grant looked at Ethan. "We should abandon the base." The room fell silent. Every face turned toward the man who had given them food, warmth, and order. Ethan watched fear spread. Fear was useful. Panic was not. "No one leaves." Grant stepped forward. "If that thing breaks through, it will." Mara's breath caught. Grant tightened his grip on the rifle. "And you still want everyone inside?" Ethan walked toward the central command panel. Outside is a frozen wasteland. The storm has buried every road. The creature will hunt heat. Running will only create smaller groups for it to consume. Dr. Voss swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Ethan placed his palm against the console. Walls shifted. Emergency barriers emerged from storage and sealed the civilian districts. Layered armor covered the medical wing. Duplicated heating units appeared beside every shelter chamber. Food, water, and medicine filled the inner rooms. The frightened crowd watched abundance materialize around them. Ethan turned. "You survive." Another impact thundered below. A laboratory door vanished from its frame. Naomi screamed through the communication channel. The screen filled with white static. Then something roared. The sound crushed every other noise. People dropped to their knees. Blood ran from ears. Lights shattered. The mountain answered with a long metallic howl. Grant stared at the sealed corridor. "What about you?" Ethan smiled. "I collect what belongs to me." He left before anyone could respond. Far south, Blackridge Tower was already dying. The damaged heating network had failed completely. Frost coated the shelter walls. Every breath formed a cloud. Lucas wore 3 coats and still trembled. Claire sat beside a powerless heater, rubbing her hands together. Vivian remained locked inside her room with the last bottles of wine and several stolen food crates. The guards had stopped obeying orders. One had disappeared during the night. Another had been found beaten beside an empty ration box. Hunger moved through the shelter like poison. Lucas stood before the central storage room. "Open it." The guard beside him shook his head. Vivian changed the code. "She cannot change my code." "She already did." Lucas pounded the door. "Mother." No answer came. Claire watched from the corridor. Her cheeks had hollowed. Her lips were cracked. "Maybe she cannot hear you." Lucas turned. "You knew she was hiding supplies." "I suspected." "And you said nothing?" Claire laughed bitterly. "You threw Ethan outside and called yourself the leader." "Lead." Lucas crossed the distance and slapped her. Claire fell against the wall. No one moved to help. She touched the blood at the corner of her mouth. Then she smiled. The same smile she had once used on Ethan. Soft, wounded, false. "You are frightened." Lucas raised his hand again. A roar rolled through the city. The shelter lights went dark. The floor trembled. Something struck the streets above. Dust spilled from the ceiling. The survivors looked upward. A second roar followed. Closer. The temperature dropped. Not slowly. Instantly. The moisture on the walls became thick ice. A guard reached for the metal railing. His skin froze to it. He screamed and pulled back. The flesh remained attached. Panic exploded. People rushed toward the inner rooms. Lucas shoved them aside. Claire crawled away. Vivian finally opened her private door. She wore layers of stolen blankets. Food crates stood behind her. Every face turned toward them. For one breath, silence held. Then the guards attacked. Vivian screamed as they dragged her down. Lucas punched the first man. Claire seized a food bag. Someone pulled her hair. A bottle shattered. Blood splashed across frozen concrete. Family, guards, and servants collapsed into one clawing mass. The shelter Ethan had built became an animal cage. Above them, something enormous moved through the storm. The creature had left the mountain. It was not supposed to escape so quickly. But Ethan had opened a path, not by mistake. The beast had sensed the greatest concentration of unstable heat in the region. Blackridge Tower. A decaying furnace beneath a frozen city. A beacon, a poisoned gift. Ethan watched through a remote drone as the creature approached his former home. Its body rose above the surrounding buildings. Black plates covered its limbs. Frozen vapor poured from cracks between its bones. It moved on 6 legs, each one ending in claws long enough to split armored vehicles. Its head had no eyes, only a circular mouth surrounded by pale teeth. Where it walked, concrete fractured. Cars froze solid. The air itself seemed to die. The beast lowered its head toward Blackridge Tower. Then it struck. The upper floors collapsed. Glass rained into the storm. The underground shelter shook. People inside screamed. Lucas crawled toward the emergency screen. Static covered the display. Then the image changed. Ethan appeared. Warm, clean, calm. He stood inside the open entrance of the crown, while snow twisted behind him. Lucas stared. "You." Claire stopped fighting. Vivian lifted her bleeding face. Every survivor turned toward the screen. Ethan watched them cling to stolen food. He saw blood on Lucas's knuckles. He saw Claire hiding a ration pouch beneath her coat. He saw Vivian clutching a broken bottle. They had reached the truth faster than he expected. The beast roared above them. Concrete split. A section of ceiling collapsed. A guard vanished beneath it. Lucas pressed both hands against the monitor. "Save us." The room went still. Ethan said nothing. Lucas's pride fought with terror. Terror won. "We made a mistake." Claire crawled closer. "Ethan, please." Vivian pushed herself upright. "You cannot let your family die." Ethan's eyes rested on her. "Family?" Her mouth closed. Another blow struck the tower. Emergency lights burst. Darkness swallowed half the shelter. The beast's claw tore through the foundation. Frozen air poured inside. A man near the breach became white in seconds. His body toppled and broke across the floor. Screams filled the room. Lucas fell to his knees. "I will give everything back." Ethan almost laughed. There was nothing left to return. The supplies were nearly gone. The fuel was wasted. The shelter was broken. Even their promises had become worthless before they offered them. Claire pressed her palms together. "I was confused. Lucas manipulated me." Lucas turned toward her. "You opened the armory. You forced me. You planned everything with my mother." Vivian struck Claire with the broken bottle. Claire screamed and lunged at her. They fell into the ice, clawing at each other. Lucas watched them with disgust. Then the ceiling bent above him. He looked back at Ethan. "Please." Ethan ended the transmission. The screen went black. Lucas screamed his name. At the crown, Grant and Mara stood behind Ethan. They had seen everything. Mara's expression was pale. "Those people were in your shelter. They stole it. You led the creature there. I gave it a warmer target." Grant looked toward the storm. "What happens when it finishes with them?" "It returns." Dr. Voss stared at Ethan. "You used them as bait." Ethan turned. "No. Bait has value." No one answered. The mountain shook in the distance. A tower collapsed beneath the beast. Its roar crossed the frozen land. Ethan stepped outside. Grant followed him to the gate. "We have heavy weapons. They will fail." "Then what is the plan?" Ethan raised one hand. The storm changed direction. Not from wind. From heat. A wave of warmth exploded from his body. Snow vanished across the valley. Ice retreated from the stone. The ground beneath him appeared for the first time since the apocalypse began. Grant stumbled back. Mara shielded her face. Ethan continued forward. With each step, the world thawed around him. The system opened every stored furnace, every heater, every geothermal core, every duplicated fuel reserve. All of their heat passed through Ethan without burning him. It gathered beneath his skin, a sun hidden inside human flesh. The beast sensed him. Miles away, it lifted its eyeless head. Blackridge Tower lay broken beneath its claws. Most of the shelter had collapsed. Lucas remained alive inside a narrow pocket of air. Claire lay beside him with a broken leg. Vivian was trapped under steel. They heard the roar turn away. For one desperate moment, relief touched them. Then the emergency screen flickered back to life. A drone showed Ethan walking across the wasteland. The storm melted before him. Lucas stared. Claire forgot her pain. Vivian stopped screaming. The creature charged. Buildings exploded beneath its weight. Frozen roads cracked. Its mouth opened wide enough to swallow a transport vehicle. Ethan did not slow. The survivors inside the crown watched through every screen. Some prayed. Some wept. Some could not breathe. The beast reached the valley. Its shadow covered Ethan. It raised one claw. The temperature plunged. Stone burst from cold. Steel walls groaned. The creature struck. Ethan lifted his hand. The claw stopped. Not against armor. Against his palm. The mountain shook from the impact. Ethan's boots sank into the earth. His arm did not move. The beast screamed. Its frozen plates began to glow. He'd entered it. Too much. Too fast. The creature tried to pull away. Ethan gripped the claw. "Store." The system answered. "Living target resisted. Analysis incomplete." Ethan smiled. "Then remove what keeps it alive." The system found the answer. Cold. The beast was not merely adapted to the freeze. The freeze was its blood, its breath, its power. Ethan opened the infinite warmth inside him. The valley became white fire. Snow vanished. Ice turned to steam. The beast thrashed. Its armor cracked. Black plates fell away. Frozen vapor erupted from its wounds. It tried to roar. Steam filled its throat. Ethan pulled once. The enormous creature crashed to the ground. People inside the crown fell silent. The god of the frozen wasteland writhed before one man. Ethan placed his palm against its skull. Heat surged. The beast convulsed. Then its body split apart. A wave of boiling mist rolled across the valley. When it cleared, only a black crystal remained in the crater. Ethan picked it up. The system spoke. Thermal Predator Core analyzed. Cold Authority acquired. Climate modification unlocked. Behind him, the survivors began to kneel. Not because he commanded them, because their bodies moved before reason returned. Grant lowered his rifle. Mara bowed her head. Naomi stared through the screen with tears running down her face. They had once believed Ethan controlled food and shelter. Now they understood. He controlled the apocalypse itself. Far beneath the ruins of Blackridge Tower, Lucas watched the final image before the drone's signal vanished. Ethan standing in a field of melted snow. The dead monster at his feet, a black crystal in his hand. Untouched, unchallenged, warm beneath the frozen sky. Lucas began to laugh. The laugh broke into sobs. Claire whispered Ethan's name. Vivian closed her eyes. The man they had starved had become the only god in a dying world, and they were still trapped beneath the grave they had stolen from him. The crown celebrated for 3 days. Not with chaos, not with waste. Ethan allowed no drunken riots, no careless fires, no food trampled beneath dancing feet. The survivors celebrated with full bowls, warm beds, clean clothes, children laughing beneath artificial sunlight. For people who had watched the world die in ice, ordinary comfort had become a miracle. For Ethan, it was merely proof. The thermal predator's black core hovered above the central command table. Cold vapor curled around it. The system had consumed its secrets. Temperature was no longer an enemy. It was a tool. Ethan could now create walls of frost harder than steel. He could freeze engines from miles away. He could draw heat from the air or return it with a thought. The apocalypse had once been a prison. Now it was his territory. He sat at the head of a long table, while Mara delivered the casualty report. No one inside the crown had died. Several workers had suffered minor injuries. The damaged sectors had already been repaired. The creature's remains had been stored and duplicated for research. Everything lost had been replaced. Everything broken had become stronger. Mara closed the report. There is one remaining issue. Ethan cut into a piece of roasted meat. Blackridge Tower. She nodded. The structure is unstable, but the emergency sensors detected several heartbeats beneath the ruins. Grant stood beside her. We could leave them there. Ethan lifted his glass. Dark wine touched his lips. He remembered another glass. Lucas raising it behind reinforced glass while Ethan froze outside. He remembered Claire laughing as hot soup hardened across his face. He remembered Vivian calling him useless. The memories no longer hurt. Pain belonged to the man who had died. Ethan had inherited only the debt. Prepare a transport, he said. Grant's eyes narrowed. You are rescuing them? Ethan looked at the wine. No. The armored convoy reached Blackridge Tower beneath a silent sky. The storm had weakened around the city, not because nature had shown mercy, because Ethan had ordered the cold to retreat. The ruined tower rose from the snow like a broken tombstone. Its upper floors had collapsed. Steel beams stabbed through shattered concrete. Frozen bodies filled the streets around it. Some had died running. Some had died hiding. Some had died fighting over doors that would never open. Ethan stepped from the transport. Behind him came Grant, Mara, and a line of crowned soldiers wearing black thermal armor. No one spoke. Ethan walked to the collapsed shelter entrance and placed one hand against the wreckage. Concrete vanished. Steel vanished. Broken pipes vanished. The mountain of debris entered his storage piece by piece. A path opened beneath the earth. The smell arrived first. Blood. Smoke. Waste. Rot. Then came the sound. A weak voice. Help. The soldiers raised their lights. Lucas lay beneath a bent support beam. One arm was trapped. His face was gray. His expensive coats had been torn into strips and wrapped around his legs. Claire lay several steps away. Her broken leg had swollen beneath a crude splint. Vivian remained pinned under a fallen cabinet. The dead surrounded them. Guards. Servants. People who had once obeyed Lucas. Several bodies had been cut open. Meat was missing from them. Mara stopped walking. Grant's jaw tightened. Ethan continued forward. Lucas blinked against the light. For a moment, he could not understand what he saw. Then Ethan emerged from the darkness. Clean boots, black coat, warm breath, a glass of wine in one hand. Lucas began to cry. Not quietly, not with dignity. The sound tore out of him like an animal caught beneath a blade. Brother. Ethan stopped beyond his reach. Lucas tried to crawl. The beam held him down. His fingers clawed across the frozen floor. I knew you would come. Ethan drank. Lucas laughed through tears. I told them you would never abandon your family. Claire lifted her head. Her hair was tangled with blood. Ethan. Her voice became soft. The same softness she once used when asking for jewelry. The same trembling weakness she once performed whenever she wanted protection. I knew you were alive. Vivian opened her eyes. The arrogance had vanished. Her cheeks had collapsed. Her lips were blue. She looked 20 years older. My son. Ethan looked toward her. Vivian wept. You came back for us. No, Ethan said. Hope paused inside their faces. Lucas forced a smile. You are angry. You have every right to be angry. He dragged his free hand closer. We made mistakes. Ethan glanced at the bodies. Mistakes? Lucas nodded quickly. The cold changed us. Claire began crying. We were frightened. Vivian tried to push the cabinet away. We did what we thought was necessary. Ethan stepped over the corpse of a guard. A strip of flesh had been carved from the man's thigh. He crouched beside it. The cut was rough, made with a broken kitchen knife. He looked at Lucas. Was this necessary? Lucas's mouth opened. No answer came. Claire covered her face. Vivian looked away. Grant's soldiers remained still, but disgust spread through their eyes. Lucas saw it. Shame turned into panic. We had no food. Ethan reached into empty air. A silver plate appeared in his hand. Roasted chicken rested upon it. Golden skin. Fresh herbs. Steam rising from tender meat. The smell filled the shelter. Lucas stared. Claire whimpered. Vivian's stomach growled loudly enough for everyone to hear. Ethan placed the plate on the floor. Close enough to smell, too far to reach. Lucas pulled against the beam until his trapped arm tore. Blood darkened his sleeve. Please. Ethan summoned fresh bread. Butter melted across its surface. Then came a bowl of thick soup, a plate of fruit, a piece of chocolate cake, hot coffee, clean water. The feast grew between them. Claire crawled forward. Pain twisted her face. Her broken leg dragged behind her. Just water. Ethan watched her crawl. She reached toward the glass. He moved it back with his boot. Claire froze. Her fingers remained stretched across the floor. Ethan spoke softly. Hungry? Claire's eyes widened. The word returned from the past like a blade. Lucas had said it while holding soup before Ethan's mouth. Claire began shaking. Ethan lifted the bowl. Steam caressed his face. Warm. Lucas closed his eyes. Tears slipped down his cheeks. Ethan poured the soup onto the floor. The liquid spread toward Lucas's hand. Lucas lowered his face and licked the concrete. Grant looked away. Mara did not. She watched Ethan without judgment. She understood that this moment had begun long before she met him. Claire grabbed a piece of bread. Before her fingers closed around it, Ethan stored the entire feast. Everything vanished. The shelter became cold and empty again. Claire stared at her hand. Then she screamed. It was not a human scream. It was the sound of hope being torn apart. You monster. Ethan smiled. There it was. The mask beneath the mask. Claire slammed her fist against the floor. You came here just to torture us. Yes. The honesty silenced her. Lucas breathed faster. You cannot mean that. I do. We are brothers. Ethan looked down at him. Lucas's trapped arm had begun turning black. His body trembled beneath torn coats. Ethan remembered the steel door closing. He remembered Lucas smiling through the glass. You should have been kinder to your family, Ethan said. Lucas stopped breathing. Those had been his exact words. The last words he offered before sending Ethan outside to die. Lucas shook his head. I did not know. You knew. I was angry. You were happy. Lucas began sobbing again. I am sorry. Ethan took another drink. Lucas pressed his forehead against the floor. I am sorry. His voice cracked. I am sorry. Again. Louder. Desperate. He repeated it until the words became meaningless noise. Ethan waited. When Lucas finally stopped, Ethan asked, Is that all? Lucas looked up. What else do you want? Nothing. I can work for you. You cannot lift your arm. I can advise you. You destroyed a shelter in days. I know people. They are dead. I am your brother. You tried to murder me. Lucas's face twisted. I was always beneath you. The apology vanished. Jealousy returned. Their father's inheritance. The company. Claire. Respect. Everything rotting inside Lucas finally spilled out. You had everything. Ethan listened. You never understood what it was like to stand beside you. Everyone compared us. Everyone looked through me. Even my mother knew you were the one father respected. Vivian flinched. Lucas laughed bitterly. You think I betrayed you because I was cruel? I betrayed you because it was the only time I ever felt greater than you. Ethan nodded. At last. Lucas stared. At last. One honest sentence. For a moment, relief touched Lucas's face. He believed honesty might save him. Ethan placed his boot against the support beam. The system analyzed it. Then the beam vanished. Lucas gasped. He pulled his ruined arm free. Hope exploded in his eyes. He crawled toward Ethan. I knew you would understand. Ethan stepped aside. Lucas tried to rise. His legs failed. He fell face first. Grant's soldiers watched in silence. Ethan walked toward Vivian. She stretched one hand toward him. Do not listen to Lucas. He has always been unstable. Lucas turned. Mother? Vivian ignored him. She looked only at Ethan. I tried to protect this family. You changed the shelter codes. Lucas forced me. You hid food from him. I was preserving it. You watched them throw me outside. Tears ran across her wrinkled face. I was afraid. Ethan crouched until they were eye to eye. Vivian reached for his coat. He caught her wrist. Her skin was thin. Her pulse fluttered beneath his fingers. She smiled weakly. You were always my son. Ethan repeated her own words. Useless people are a burden. Vivian's smile died. He released her. Then he stored the cabinet, pinning her body. She inhaled sharply. Her legs were crushed. Bone pressed against torn skin. She tried to move and scream. Still, hope remained. Pain meant life. Freedom meant rescue. She dragged herself toward Ethan. I can tell everyone that you are the rightful heir. Ethan looked around the ruined shelter. To what? The Vale name. He almost laughed. Above them waited a mountain fortress. An army. Endless resources. Power over heat and cold. Vivian offered him a dead man's surname as though it were treasure. I buried that name with the man you killed. Vivian's face collapsed. Ethan turned toward Claire. She had stopped crying. Her eyes moved quickly, calculating. Even now, even broken. She studied the soldiers, the weapons, Mara, the open exit. Then she smiled at Ethan. I never loved Lucas. Lucas stared at her. Claire crawled closer. I chose him because I was afraid of you. Ethan said nothing. You were always so distant. I never knew what you felt. She touched his boot. But I know now. Lucas screamed. You lying whore. Claire turned on him. You sent Ethan outside. You beat me. You let your mother hide food while we starved. You planned it with us. You wanted his life. You wanted his money. They shouted over one another. Every secret emerged. Claire had promised Vivian control over Ethan's company. Vivian had promised Claire protection. Lucas had planned to abandon both of them once the supplies ran low. The guards had been bribed with food that never existed. Each betrayal contained another betrayal. Each lie concealed a sharper lie. Ethan listened until their voices broke. Then he raised one hand. Silence fell. Claire looked up at him. I can be useful. Ethan nodded toward Mara. I already have someone useful. Claire's eyes filled with hatred. You replaced me with her? Mara did not react. Ethan looked at Claire with quiet contempt. You still believe you once occupied a place worth replacing. The word struck harder than any blow. Claire's face emptied. For years, she had imagined herself the center of Ethan's private world, a woman valuable enough to destroy him. Now she understood. She had never been his weakness, only his mistake. Ethan walked toward the exit. Lucas panicked. Where are you going? Ethan did not stop. You cannot leave us. Ethan reached the stairs. Claire dragged herself after him. Vivian clawed across the floor. Lucas screamed until his voice tore. Ethan paused beneath the open sky. Snow drifted into the shelter. He turned and looked down at them. 3 broken figures crawled through blood and darkness. Once, they had stood behind warm glass while he died. Now an open path waited before them. Beyond it stood armored transports. Food, medicine, warmth, life. Close enough to see, impossible to reach. Lucas stretched out his hand. One chance. Ethan smiled. You already had mine. He raised the black crystal. Cold flowed from it. Not wild, not instant. Slow, precise. The shelter entrance began to freeze. Ice crept across the walls. Lucas dragged himself faster. His ruined body moved only inches. Claire screamed Ethan's name. Vivian promised money, loyalty, obedience, love, anything. The ice thickened. Their breath crystallized. Their fingers turned pale. Ethan watched without anger. Anger would have made the moment smaller. He felt only completion. Lucas reached the bottom stair. His hand froze against it. Claire collapsed behind him. Vivian stopped moving first. Her final expression remained fixed upon the warm lights outside. Claire died next. Her fingers were wrapped around Lucas's ankle, still trying to pull him backwards so she could climb over him. Lucas remained alive longest. He stared at Ethan through the rising wall of ice. His lips moved. No sound escaped. Ethan understood anyway. Brother. The ice sealed shut. Blackridge Tower became silent. Ethan returned to the crown before nightfall. The gates opened. Warm light poured across the snow. People lowered their heads as he passed. Children laughed in the distant gardens. Machines hummed. Food cooked. Water flowed. Humanity continued beneath the mountain because Ethan allowed it to continue. He entered the throne chamber alone. The seat had been forged from black metal recovered from the thermal predator's prison. Cold vapor curled beneath it. A glass of wine waited on the armrest. Ethan sat. Above him, the frozen world stretched beneath a sky without mercy. Beneath him, an empire breathed. He thought of Lucas, Claire, and Vivian entombed inside the shelter they had stolen. They had begged for forgiveness. They had offered love after love became worthless. They had offered loyalty after betrayal destroyed their value. They had offered apologies only when consequences finally reached them. Ethan lifted the glass. His reflection trembled across the wine. People call it cruelty when the blade they sharpened finally turns toward their own throat. He drank. The throne remained warm. The world remained frozen. And no one would ever take what belonged to him again.